Prior to the release of Ridley Scott's Prometheus, the question on everybody's mind was, is this a prequel to Alien, or is it just in the same universe and has nothing to do with the Alien storyline? Now that Prometheus has been released, you'd think we'd have an answer to that question, but we don't. Before I begin this video, I think it's pretty obvious, but I just want to make sure you know, this video contains spoilers from Prometheus, the Alien series overall, all that stuff, so you've been warned. Now, this video is a response to a video that Jahns posted recently about whether or not Prometheus is a prequel or a spin-off. And if you don't know who Jahns is, definitely go check him out. He's another great movie reviewer here on YouTube. But basically, his position on whether or not Prometheus is a prequel to Alien is no. He says it's a spin-off, and he gave all kinds of different reasons why, and I think it's great, and I want to make sure you understand that neither myself or Jahns are Ridley Scott, or the writers, so we don't know whether it's a prequel or a spin-off in their eyes, I guess. These are just our thoughts, our opinions on whether or not it's a prequel or a spin-off, and I have to say, I really think as of right now, it's neither. It's up to you. It's whatever you want it to be, whatever you decide, and I think that's really where it ends right there. That's where the argument ends. However, I'm going to tell you my thoughts on why I personally think that it's a prequel. Now, I'm not going to go into the fact that there's a xenomorph at the end of Prometheus. I don't know about that. I think, as far as I'm concerned, that little guy could just run around on LV-223 his whole life, and I don't care. It might be irrelevant to my entire theory here. But the first aspect of my thoughts on Prometheus being a prequel to the Alien series, Alien 1 and 2 only, by the way, that's the only thing we're considering canon here, is the fact that, obviously, in Alien, they find a space jockey, they go up to him, and they knock on him or whatever, and they go, oh, this is fossilized. But here's the problem with that. We find out in Prometheus that it is not, in fact, fossilized. It's a suit. There's something living inside of the suit, but the suit itself is not a living organism. And in Alien, they think that it is the remains of a living organism that has fossilized, but it's not. It's a suit. They don't know that. We know that because we've seen Prometheus. So right off the bat, that's one thing that I think a lot of people are overlooking and is extremely important in understanding the whole timeline of this. So even though they say it's fossilized, it could have technically landed there the day before. Well, you know, not really, but you get what I'm saying. It could have been recent, or it could have been there for a while. It doesn't matter, because it's the suit, and it's not going to change. Or it's not going to change like a living organism would. If you remember in Alien, they actually see that something burst out of it, and I'm sure when Alien was made, Ridley Scott's intention was that it was a living organism, and there was a chest burster that came out of it. However, I think Ridley Scott has changed his mind because he then went back and made it into a suit, and I don't think that was his original intention, because it does look like a living organism. And why would they make a suit that looks like a living alien elephant man? That's kind of weird. So I think that he just doubled back on himself, and maybe that's why people are confused. But regardless, it's possible that something was inside, like we've seen in Prometheus. The engineer is inside, and then the engineer had a chest burster that burst through the suit as well. Now, I'm not suggesting that there was an engineer inside the space jockey suit that is found in Alien on LV-426 by the Nostromo crew. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, what I'm saying is very different than that. And this is where something else Jeremy said comes into play. He said that his position could change if a sequel to Prometheus comes out and bridges a gap between Prometheus and Alien, making Prometheus the part 1 of a 2 or 3 part prequel to Alien. So that's totally cool that he said that, because that is what I'm thinking is going to happen, and that's why I think that Prometheus is a prequel to Alien. And here's my thought. As soon as Prometheus ended, the first thing I thought was, okay, well, if Shaw just flew that ship away, which looks just like the ship that the engineer tried to take off in to go to Earth at the end of Prometheus, and just like the ship that they find on LV-426 in Alien, if she's flying that thing, does she not need to be inside a space jockey suit to fly it? It seemed like you needed to be inside of it. You sit down, and then it comes around you, right? That's what happened with the engineer at the end of Prometheus. And obviously she's smaller, so I don't know that it would be very snug, but that was my first thought. Okay, she's inside one of those suits. My next thought was, what if that ship crash lands on LV-426? And of course, my next thought, which you're probably already ahead of me on this, what if the space jockey they found in Alien had Shaw inside? How awesome would that be? I think that would be awesome, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's what happens in the sequel. And if it does, I apologize for ruining it, because it's just my thoughts, obviously, but that was my initial thought as soon as Prometheus ended, and that's why I was surprised that people were saying they thought it was a spin-off, just because I thought, well, I had no doubt it was a prequel to Alien, and this is where it's going to go. Once again, not fact. I'm not Ridley Scott, Jeremy's not Ridley Scott, none of you, except for Ridley Scott, are Ridley Scott, so we don't know exactly what their plans are, but these are my thoughts, those are Jeremy's thoughts. I think both of us have fair ground here because I really think it's up to just whatever you want it to be at this point, but let me know what you think about my theories here. I am very, very interested in seeing what you guys think, primarily about the fact that the space jockey they found in Alien would not have been fossilized because we find out that it's actually a suit. Unless I'm missing something, that's my thought on that. So let me know if I'm missing anything in between here that would cancel out any of my thoughts. Even if I'm, mistaken in any way, like if I missed something, I do think that this is an interesting and cool theory, and I do think that would be awesome if it turns out to be Shaw, and they could totally do that. So let me know anything that you want about any of these theories or anything about Prometheus versus Alien. If you want to talk just Prometheus, you can go check out my review of Prometheus. If you want to talk just Alien, you can check out my recap of all the Alien movies. But let me know any of your thoughts on this topic. Thank you very much to Jeremy Jahns for kind of starting this discussion on YouTube. I hope you let me know what you think of my thoughts, and that's pretty much it.